if you're not reaching out to a new lead that comes into your business, if you're not reaching out to those leads within 5 minutes of them coming in, your chances of being able to actually close that deal go down by 400%. Each sale requires 5 touch points with a customer for you to actually close that deal.
The higher the amount of intent to purchase from you, the thing you're selling, from your company now, the higher the intent, the little bit lower of intensity you could do. Hey, how's it going? It's Tim Brown, and this is the Hook Better Leads podcast, and we're talking about speed to lead and diversifying your follow-up strategies with Max Meade. It all rhymes. How you doing, bro?
Hey, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Tim.
Absolutely. We're also going to be talking about using AI, specific ways you can use it for your roofing company now, and how to use AI for follow-up. But first, Max, could you give me a 1-minute quick background of you and your company?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. My name is Max Meade. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Alavo, and we're helping people across the trades with their overall software strategy, but also their business strategy. How can we help people manage their business in the most efficient way possible?
Absolutely. And, I want to get into some stats real quick around speed to lead. Some ones you might have heard before, but the big first one, share with me, Max, about what is it? It's about 5 minutes in follow
Five
up.
minutes. Yeah. So if you're not reaching out to a new lead that comes into your business, this is a phone call, this is a website form, this is a lead that you're buying from any of the pay per lead sources. If you're not reaching out to those leads within 5 minutes of them coming in, your chances of being able to actually close that deal go down by 400%. So being able to reach out to people as quickly as you possibly can is extremely, extremely important.
Any other stats you can share around that?
Yeah, so one of the things that we find is even if you're able to reach out as quickly as you can, right? You even get them within 5 minutes, you also need to continue following up with people they don't hear from, right? So typically each sale requires 5 touch points with a customer for you to actually close that deal. So this is someone you talk to, you schedule the appointment, you want to confirm the appointments, you're going to want to reach out after the appointments, you're going to want to follow up on quotes. It's extremely important that you have a very diligent process when it comes to speed to lead, but also follow-ups, because if you're not doing that, you're not going to hit those 5 touch points, and that's truly what's required to book a job.
Let's talk about diversifying follow up strategies. So
Yeah.
you're saying different methods might be smart for, let's say, channels or based on where you are in the country. Talk to me about that. What's the difference of follow up strategies for different channels?
Yeah, so if we want to talk channels first, this is like where your leads are coming from. So let's say you're buying a lead off the Thumbtacks and the Angies of the world. Now everybody knows
Boo! No, just kidding.
if you're buying those leads, they're super expensive, but they're also being sold to multiple businesses at the same time, which means that they're super competitive leads. You don't have the same benefit of a lead that's coming in directly through your website or someone that's calling you directly, right? So because you have that competition, it's super important that you have a more aggressive follow-up strategy with leads that come in through those channels, right? And when I say aggressive, I mean that lead comes in, of course, speed to lead, less than 5 minutes, ideally 30 seconds. But take it one step further. How quickly do you reach back out to a lead if you haven't heard anything from that customer, right? We recommend 5 minutes for that first touch point, right? Within 5 minutes. But the second one, we say an extra 15 minutes. So let's say someone comes in from Thumbtack right now. I'm going to reach out as quickly as I can. 15 minutes later, if I haven't heard from someone, I'm going to reach out again. That's super aggressive, right? That's not something that you're really going to expect. And a lot of people say, well, I reach out quickly, I'm super, super fast, but then they never reach out again, or they take a full day to reach back out. But during that time, they're going to have all these other businesses that are reaching out at different times, and they might get them at the right time. And your job is not only to be fast, but to get people at the time that they're ready to do business and are ready to talk to you. So you want to reach out like 15 minutes later, but let's say someone's coming in through a website form, you've worked with Hook Agency on your SEO, your pay-per-click, someone's coming into their website form, you probably don't need to be quite as aggressive with that channel, right? Maybe 15 minutes after the fact is a bit too aggressive. You don't want to come off as annoying. Let's reach out an hour later, maybe 2 hours later. And that sort of process is going to enable you to still be right in front of the customer. And it's going to enable you guys to close a lot more deals without being that like annoying kind of squeaky wheel. You got to be careful on being too squeaky, but you still want to be the squeaky wheel.
I could see it's about intent, right? Like the higher the amount of intent to purchase from you, the thing you're selling, from your company now, the higher the intent, the little bit lower of intensity you could do. But if it's
Totally.
like Facebook ads, for instance, maybe it's a little bit lower intent. They just clicked an ad. You got to be fast. You got to kind of get them while they're revved up about the idea.
Yeah, or if they're coming in through like a content play, right? A lot of times they'll use lead magnets to generate leads about a certain topic. But if they're not actually looking to make a purchase, they didn't fill out the get a quote form on your website, they filled out the form for a free booklet or something like that on roofing, right? You're going to want to hit the people a lot less aggressively if they're filling out a form for a booklet versus a quote. Someone that has a quote shows that intent to buy, and you're going to want to hit them pretty hard.
Yeah, I've downloaded one of those things before, and then I'm like, 2 weeks later, I'm getting like these really intense follow up calls, and like, are you like no longer interested in being a good dad or something like that? And you're like, oh my god, like I just wanted your booklet on like tips of things to
Oh,
do with it, like whatever. So yeah, it's a weird it's a weird balance there. All right, well, how should we change our style based on markets? Like,
totally. So I think another piece of it is how competitive is your market, right? So it depends what channel they're coming in, what forms they're filling out, what numbers they're calling, and you should make sure you set yourself up to track all of that stuff. So you're being able to reach out to people on different sort of cadences, different frequencies, depending on the channel. But if you're also in an extremely competitive market, that's going to change as well. If you're in Houston, which there's a large number of people that are going to be in Houston just because there's so many damn roofers in Houston, you know that you're going to have to be reaching out to people a lot more aggressively in Houston than you are if you're in a smaller town, right? If you're a smaller town, you're only five or six or one out of five or six roofers that's in your town, you aren't going to have to compete as much against the other businesses or your competition. But if you're in a position where you have a ton of competition in your current market, you're going to need to be more aggressive. And the main reason for that is if I have a leak on my roof, what am I going to do? I'm going to go on Google, I'm going to go through and I'm going to hit as many businesses as I can. And the first one that's going to reach out, the one that's going to be in front of me, the one that's going to provide that quote first is likely going to be the person that I do business with. Now, if I'm in a small town, there's only three people on that list. If I'm in Houston, there's 3,600. Now, obviously, I'm not going to reach out to all 3,600. So it's really important that you're ranking high when it comes to organic search. But it's also important that you're able to compete against those other businesses that are on the list because those businesses are going to be reaching out as aggressively, if not more aggressively than you. And you want to make sure that you're not annoying, but you're actually in the position where they've already hooked you've already hooked into them and they're basically going to say, yeah, I've already decided to move forward with XYZ roofers, so I'm not going to touch these guys, right?
all right. Well, anything else you want to talk about related to speed the lead before we go into just broader AI ways to use AI in your
Yeah.
business?
I think one other thing that's super important is being very, very consistent. So once you establish what is the best strategy given my geographic location, the channels that I'm bringing leads in through, how do I make a process that allows me to be super consistent so that I can basically measure, hey, is this strategy working or is this strategy working better? Because best case scenario, you find the strategy that's working best and you can continue to invest more heavily in that area so that you can build out more lead generation tools and then be able to actually drive more revenue for the business. So not only should you have speed to lead, not only should you follow up and change your aggression, but create a process that allows you to actually be consistent so that you're able to really see whether or not the channels that you're using, the market that you're in, is working for you.
Yeah, I saw an interview recently on a sales podcast with Alex Hormozy, and he's talking about, hey, you need to stick with my script specifically for the first 3 months and in general, right? He has scripts. He's a very scripted like systems. And he's saying because if you do a variation, I'll let you do it as a test, but you got to do one piece, do a variation, and then if it works, we're going to incorporate it amongst all the reps.
Totally.
And there's also another thing from that podcast that I really like that he's talking about is increasing show up rate
Yeah,
and like anything to do to increase like to make sure that the appointment actually gets done. And that's something I think we could also use AI for, right? And like with or just automations, right? Automations in general, follow ups and stuff like that with to make sure people actually get to the appointment, to make sure that they don't reschedule, to make sure and that there's a lot of things around speed around that too. He was
100%.
talking about how if you get them same day to get into an appointment, it goes like close rate goes up. If you get them
Oh,
like
totally.
all the follow ups too, just to kind of like push into as soon as possible, And I thought that was very useful, including like just making sure they show up for the appointment, which is an interesting one. And it's obviously different. He's talking about gyms, we're talking about home services, but not that different in a lot of ways because,
Oh,
you know,
100%.
you know, if it's not them being apathetic and not moving forward with this project, is your competitor being more aggressive than you to make sure that they get that appointment and that they follow through on it.
Totally. Yeah, and
All right,
it's a level of
sorry.
aggressive. It's about being aggressive, but it's also about being consistent and using a process that's optimized. You don't have to spend 10 years building out this perfect optimized process. We can help you do that. There's a ton of content out there that can help you do that, but it's a matter of being consistent, just like you're saying, because once you have something, you can scale it and you can grow it. And it's better to scale something that works at 10% than it is to scale something that took you 5 years to get to 11%, right? You want to work on building out a process that actually drives business, and then you can actually scale those processes and optimize once you get to that point.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, so let's talk about using AI for other real shit in your roofing business. So, what have you seen people actually use this for? Because I think it's tough. A lot of us are inspired and want to use AI on some stuff, and maybe we fizzled out on using it for social media or whatever. Because we realized it wasn't as good for some of these things that the initial idea came to us on. What are the things that you're seeing people use it for real?
Totally. At first, it seemed like you could use it for literally every single thing in your business, right? It was like, I'm never gonna have to write anything ever again. But the thing is you know your business, you know your customers better than anyone. So how can you really have something else that's like really pushing this sort of content in a less specific way, actually generate revenue, actually generate traction for the business? But one of the things that we've found that works really well is there's of course elements of your sales process that do need to be personalized, right? It's about creating this consistent approach. It's about creating these scripts, kind of like you were talking about, Tim. But there's always going to be those specific pieces of a script that do need to be personalized ever so slightly. And one of the things that you can use AI for is being able to personalize those aspects of your script in a way that enables you to have an engaging conversation. So you're not just hitting this like ABCD chatbot level interaction, right? You don't want to be using a script to the level where it says like reply yes or no to a text message. That just screams that you're impersonal, you're not really there to service your customers. You need to use some sort of level of personalization so that people know they're actually talking to a business that they want to work with. And that's one of the places that we've seen businesses use AI to an extreme level, and it's worked really, really well, right? We're able to drive higher conversion by personalizing those very minor pieces of a customer interaction to the conversation at hand, right? If someone says that their roof is leaking, you want to have a conversation that mentions the fact that their roof is leaking. It shouldn't be a copy paste of a past conversation that's super generic. Something that just shows, hey, I'm actually talking to someone who cares about what I'm doing. But being able to do that in a really fast way can be hard, right? So being able to use AI, leverage the gods of ChatGPT to create more personalized customer interactions is a really valuable way for you to actually move people forward in your sales process without kind of putting a bunch of one size fits all content into the universe. Does that make sense?
Hey guys, this is Bruce by Don. And when dealing with insurance companies, you definitely need an expert by your side. So if you need someone to walk in, hold your hands throughout the insurance process, not really, Max. Deal with the experts, supplement experts.
You can hold my hand.
Absolutely. Well, how else have you seen people specifically use it? I'll just give you a few applications, and we've done something like this on our channel, but I want to just note one way I've used it is for aggregating personal information and as a thinking tool. So I have a Timbot that I'm also going to be using in conjunction with my executive assistant so that she can pick my brain without picking my brain, but it's got like literally like 40 pages of like data on our business and on our industries that we serve so that it's almost like to query a knowledge base. Do you know what I mean? So you can put an
Totally.
entire you could put a PDF of a book in there and say and ask the book a question, right? And that's another way. Summarization is a big one for me. Like I don't always have time to read every book, and I think the ability to summarize if there's a PDF available somewhere or to create. Yeah, I use it all the time for summarization and to make things more bite-sized and like, hey, based on my situation, look at this book and give me like 3 examples of things I could do now to apply the book, even if I've read it before. Because now I read a lot of the same books like multiple times, and I'm trying to find more ways to apply the principles that I believe in to my situation instead of always reading new books. So there's a lot of like summarization and asking a question to a knowledge base type things that, like, hey, if you put in manufacturer's specs for a particular shingle in there or something like that, and you could ask it questions. I've
100%.
also seen an additional specific use of AI that I've seen roofing business owners use at my recommendation was a creating quizzes out of your, you know, let's say you have onboarding documents for your business, or you have a manual or whatever you have. You could even take transcripts of videos and put it in there and say, come up with a 10-point quiz to quiz my people on these videos after they watch them, so that you could do, here's 10 videos to onboard them onto your company. And then, all right, here's a quiz to test you on your comprehension, which is, it's not always to just, try to make it into school, but it is to increase comprehension because they know there's a quiz afterwards, right? There's a reason that education systems use these systems for a long time. It's essentially, you got to inspect what you expect, right? I expect you to watch these videos. I'm going to inspect whether you did that or not at the end of it.
Yeah, I like what you said about the knowledge base too. I think one huge application that we've seen business owners use is training their team with that kind of stuff, right? You can take
Mm-hmm.
all of the information you have about your company, all the information you have about the process that you guys do, the products that you use, and you can basically just dump that all into an AI assistant that can help your actual team handle customer inquiries in real time. One of the things you don't want to do if you have someone on the phone that's asking about a certain type of shingle is transfer that person, put them on hold to ask somebody else. You want to be able to answer that question as quickly as you can. You want to deliver the best possible customer experience as quickly as you can with every single customer. And being able to have something that's digested all the information about your business at the ready for them to basically query against to answer questions in real time is a massive value add because it really sets your company apart and shows that your employees know what they're talking about. So not only for existing employees, but you can really leverage those existing employees to basically populate the knowledge bases, the pieces of information that they're going to use to be able to facilitate conversations with customers. And you can provide that to new employees as well. And that way they can have this sort of basically person at their disposal that they can talk to get information that they need when they're talking to customers.
Absolutely. And a lot of, maybe you're early and you don't have a lot of standard operating procedures yet. We have every single thing in our business down to standard operating procedures. I know a lot of home service business, roofing business owners that do. I've spent a lot of time on these things, but yet the amount of like utilization, the amount of, actually using that information is a little bit lower than you might want, right? So this is just such a way to increase that utilization rate of the information. And I think that's beautiful. One more that I'll throw out here too. I use loom.com. No, like,
It was awesome.
sponsorship or affiliation. We use the AI version where literally I've got an executive assistant starting in a few weeks, and I've created looms, multiple looms of the same, me doing an activity that I know is going to be a repetitive activity that they'll be able to take over. And it automatically, it recognizes that it's a standard operating procedure, and it will create a very well ordered outline of that standard operating procedure. Now, their first job is going to be to clean that up because it's not perfect, because AI is a little, sometimes unwieldy, but it's about figuring out specific ways you can use this now. Loom AI is definitely one, no sponsorship or affiliation there. And ultimately, like, there are a lot of other specific ways. Do you have any other quick ones that people can utilize AI for their home service business?
Another one is honestly emails. If you're sending emails back and forth, you're following up with people on emails and you want to just personalize something quickly, write out a quick version of an email. Maybe you don't like how it sounds. Maybe you think it could be a bit more polished and just pop it into something like ChatGPT. I do that all the time, especially late at night after I've been working all day and I'm writing this email and I'm reading it. I'm like, oh man, this thing, I shouldn't even send this because it's not putting my best foot forward. ChatGPT is able to make it put your best foot forward really, really quickly. So that's a great way, super fast. Anyone can do it, and you can use free tools available that can make every communication you have with customers sound like you're coming from a professional, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely use it to kind of strip emotion sometimes. Hey, make this sound a little nicer.
Totally.
Like, how can you turn, what should AI turn per my last email into? By the way, I did talk about this in a previous. See, I don't even know how to make it sound nice, but you know what I'm saying. Like, there's definitely
Totally.
moments where I'm a little spicy, and I'm like, you know what, AI, strip my emotion out of this thing.
Just get the point across and do it
Yeah.
as quickly as possible. If you have a long email too, get rid of it. Make it short, make it bullet points. That way people actually read the emails that you're sending out. AI is really good at being able to bring a bunch of information into a concise format that people will actually read.
And sometimes I'll tell AI when I'm using it to either aggregate, consolidate, or
Totally.
strip emotion from something. I'll say, "This is the result I want.
Yeah,
This is the end result that I want. Can you help me kind of make that more likely instead of just like, so much." I honestly think underrated use of AI and ChatGPT in particular is like a thinking tool. You know what I mean? If I'm even just putting this query in there and the process of saying, what result do I really want? And putting it in there, like it's actually helping me by having somebody else to discuss something to, somebody else, right? Something else. It's allowing me to think better because
totally.
I'm trying to clarify my thoughts. I always found this to be the case. Sometimes we work with overseas contractors and having to like simplify and make sure it's a really clear, specific statement. Also, coding, I've found that when I'm coding something and I have to make the very clear if this, then that statement. These things are
Yeah,
like thinking tools. They help us think more clearly. And I mean, to me, that's one of the most underrated uses of this. I know other people that do it too.
totally. Yeah, I feel like sometimes like all the listeners here are likely business owners. They're having to build something from scratch, and that's super hard to do. But having almost a thing or a person that you can go back and forth with when it comes to business ideas is super valuable. You basically put some information, hey, I'm trying a new marketing strategy, and these are the things that I'm doing. What else could I do to improve this? Or what is going to be more effective? Something they could just kind of have this back and forth conversation with you because you can, of course, pay consultants to do that, right? But it gets really expensive and it could be very time intensive, and you might not necessarily need to be putting your time and resources into that area. But having something that you can use to have this kind of back and forth conversation, think more about the strategies that you're deciding to pursue as part of your business could be a really valuable way to use those sort of resources. And then you can really make sure you're allocating your time in the most effective way.
I will say on that, I believe it might be better to give it like, let's say, 10 business books or like ask for the perspective of a particular person who's like, I could ask like in the voice and logic of Alex Hermosi, give me some feedback, right? Or, here's 10 PDFs of business books that we kind of run off of. Cause that's what
And
I've done. I've
yeah,
essentially given Traction and eMyth Revisited and I'm trying to think about a few other books, but I've given it a bunch of books and I've said with these story brand and they ask you answer and give me some advice based on the logic and systems in these books. I think
totally.
it's good to kind of like query it based on smaller data sets. If I was to give anyone any recommendations with AI, because essentially otherwise it's aggregating all of knowledge,
Totally.
and
The
I
entire
feel like
internet.
when you mix like all the colors, you know what I mean? Like in a paint set, it's just going to be gross, right? So it's like here's five colors that I want to use in this painting. Now, can you make me something like beautiful? it's kind of the same idea of like giving it less data to give you feedback on. I think that's
Yeah.
what I've seen work really, really well too.
Tim, I think that's great advice because you have to be careful. You're right. It's trained on the entire internet. I think your analogy with colors is perfect because if you can give it a little bit of guardrail for how it steers your conversation, you're going to get so much more out of it. You know the
Mhm.
end goal, you know what you're trying to decide, you know what you're trying to understand. How can you give it some information or some context so that it really helps you in the context that you want versus it telling
Yeah.
you everything that someone posted on a Reddit thread 3 years ago that might not necessarily be the best advice for the business, right?
And plus, it's just going to have contradictions in it. So then it's
Totally.
like, I don't know who to trust. And then you just get this vanilla answer, right? So this is a great lead into how this might affect your follow up.
If you truly believe in what you're doing and you want to be the best version of yourself and you want to build a great organization, there's no other place to do that besides the Roofing Academy.
So, Max, how does some of this stuff with AI, how could you use it for sales follow up?
Totally. So number one is you got to get all of your different lead channels into one place, right? How can you have some sort of process that enables you to bring all of your different lead channels into one source of truth that you can start to leverage some of these technologies around, right? So that's number one is bringing in, whether that's a spreadsheet, whether that's literally pen and paper, it doesn't matter, but you need something where it all goes into one place. Number two, you need to be able to track the different components that are super important. Like we talked about earlier, if you're bringing leads in through a lead magnet on your website or you're buying a lead off the Thumbtack and the Angies of the world, you're going to have different processes. So being able to tag or mark those people in some way is super, super important so that you can use AI in different ways, right? If we're going to have someone that comes in through a lead magnet, they're looking for a brochure about how to be the best dad or how to be the best client for a roofer. You're going to want to talk to those guys in a very different way. And you can use AI to personalize your conversational approach with that person while still maintaining a very consistent script and a follow-up process, right? So once you
Mm-hmm.
have the different leads brought into one place, you have those different tags, it's a matter of coming up with your strategy. So if we have leads that are coming in through the lead magnet, let's figure out ways to follow up with those people on a long time scale. First, understand your customer. How long does it take for one of those customers to eventually need their roof fixed? Is this a customer that we're going to nurture in the context of, hey, I want me to be in the back of their head as a business so that when their roof is leaking, they know who to call first and they're not going to call anybody else? That's a totally valid strategy. If they're coming in through Thumbtack, that's the worst strategy you could possibly use, right? You're going to want to hit those guys really, really hard. So come up with what makes sense for your business based on your geography and how competitive the market is, the lead channel that they're coming in through, how aggressive and what sort of content you want to create so that you can put guardrails on the conversation, right? We were talking a little bit earlier about how you don't want to just let AI take over with all of your business communication. You got to set the end goal, you got to set the guardrails so that AI can be used in the most context specific manner so it actually has a good conversation with your customers. Once you've figured that out, what we like to call that is like what campaigns are you creating for your customers based on their different channel. That's when you can really start to use AI to your advantage. Creating hyper personalized conversational scripts that you can use with customers based on their individual profile. So you know this person's coming in from the north side of town. It's an expensive neighborhood. You know you've had this person in your pipeline for 3 months. They talked to you a while ago about a roof that was leaking, but you never actually talked to them or they never decided to move forward with you. Use all the information you have about that customer to create a hyper personalized conversational script based on what you know works. That could be scripts that you've created for your business. That could be scripts that you've bought or read about online. Books are a great way to find these sort of scripts that you can use with your customers. You don't have to reinvent the wheel with this stuff, but you do want to personalize those scripts in some way, shape, or form to the actual lead and to the actual customer journey. And then once you have those, actually start having those conversations, right? Now, we talked a little bit about speed to lead at the beginning. We've talked a lot about personalization and being able to follow these scripts, but in a hyper personalized and engaging way. One of the things that enables you to do that is a system like Alavo. So, Alavo is able to consolidate all of your leads into one place. It's able to figure out where those leads are coming from, and you're able to create hyper personalized campaigns specific to the audience at hand and the goal of that campaign. So whether you're just trying to keep someone in the back of your head, so like I said, when their roof is leaking, they're going to contact you before they contact any other roofers, or if they're a super aggressive lead that came in with a very, very high intent to buy, we're going to create different campaigns so that you can basically automate this hyper personalized, engaging process of lead nurturing and lead follow up. Now, of course, that's going to give you perfect speed to lead, because when those leads come into the system, it's going to automate everything for you. So you are always going to be reaching out first. You're always going to be reaching out within 5 minutes, but it's also going to be able to handle that kind of follow-up strategy based on time and based on the lead information that you have, or that demographic information, past customer information, so that you can have the most personalized customer experience possible. And that's something you don't need software to do, but it does make it a hell of a lot easier.
Very cool. Well, how could people get started with that?
Yeah, so if you want to learn more about Alivo and how we can create a custom AI sales assistant for your business, the best way to get in contact with me is to send me an email. My email is max@alivo, ALIVO.ai. So you can definitely send me an email. I'll also put my phone number in the description so you can give me a call or text. And from there, we can definitely continue the conversation, and we'll actually create a custom AI sales assistant specific for your business so you can see exactly how this entire process can be taken off your plate and automated using the latest AI.
Crazy, dude. Crazy. Check it
It's a
out,
new
folks.
world.
Absolutely. I'm just super excited. Like every time I open up one of these softwares or like poke around, I'm like that Loom thing that I found, I'm like literally like, what the hell? Like, because I was gonna have her watch the videos, and then like it made the SOPs automatically, like and make the SOPs, and then I'm like, she doesn't need to make the SOPs. They're made. I got to come up with different things, better things for humans to do, because it's doing some of the things that humans would have done. And that's just a very cool place to be, I think. I think it's a beautiful thing. Well, thanks everyone for watching. This is the Hook Better Leads podcast. It's put on by hookagency.com and Hook Agency all over social media. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And also rate and review the podcast if you're listening on an audio platform. Thank you again, Max. It was really nice to meet you and really nice to hear about your platform. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Tim.